All right, so today we are diving into Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
Oh,
You
yeah.
gave us quite a challenge with this one.
It's a tough one.
It's not exactly light reading.
No.
This book chronicles Frankl's experiences in Nazi concentration camps.
Yeah.
But it also lays out his theory of logotherapy.
It's a really unique book. I mean,
Yeah.
it blends personal narrative and psychological theory.
Right.
Frankl shows how, even in the most horrific circumstances, you can still find meaning.
Yeah, it's definitely more than just a historical account.
Right.
It feels like a guide to building resilience and discovering purpose,
Absolutely.
even when things feel hopeless.
What I find so striking is that he doesn't dwell on the large-scale horrors of the camps.
Right.
He focuses on the daily torments the prisoners faced.
Yeah, like that brutal selection process for transports.
Oh, yeah.
He talks about how survival often meant getting your name and a friend's off the list.
Right.
But even that usually meant someone else was condemned in your place.
It's a harrowing ethical dilemma.
It is.
How do you value life when every decision could mean life or death?
Yeah. And thinking about those choices.
Yeah.
Frankl talks about the prisoners going through 3 distinct phases of mental reaction to camp life.
Right.
This isn't just about surviving physically,
No.
but mentally and emotionally, too.
Yeah. Right. He starts with phase 1, shock.
Okay.
He describes his own arrival at Auschwitz,
Uh-huh.
witnessing families being torn apart,
Oh, wow.
and the Nazis deciding who was fit for work and who would immediately be sent to their death.
He talks about that moment where he was forced to strip naked,
Yeah.
having his head shaved,
To humanize.
feeling completely dehumanized.
Totally.
And then there's that powerful moment where he describes mentally striking out his whole former life.
Oh, yeah.
What do you make of that?
It seems like he had to let go of who he was before to survive in this new, terrifying reality.
Could that be a common reaction to trauma?
It's definitely possible.
Okay.
Trauma forces us to reevaluate our sense of self
Right.
and our priorities. It can be brutal, but sometimes necessary.
Then comes phase 2,
Uh-huh.
apathy.
Yes.
Frankl describes this emotional detachment that set in as a coping mechanism.
He gives this chilling example
Yeah.
of watching a fellow prisoner being beaten,
Oh.
or the casual way a typhus victim's body was disposed of.
Yeah, you can see how this emotional numbing would be necessary
Absolutely.
to function in that environment.
But even amidst this apathy,
Yeah.
Frankl points out these small comforts
Okay.
that became sources of what he calls negative happiness.
Yes.
Like securing a spot at the front of the marching line
Oh.
because you were the capo's physician.
Yeah.
Or even just arguing about the best way to eat your meager bread ration.
Seems counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Finding happiness in a concentration camp.
But we still crave those small glimmers of control.
Right.
Some semblance of routine.
Exactly.
And it speaks to the resilience of the human spirit.
Yeah.
Even when stripped of everything else.
Right.
We're still driven to make our lives even a tiny bit better.
Right. Frankl even describes finding beauty in unexpected moments.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Like listening to a violin concert amidst the suffering.
Wow.
Or finding humor in imagining post-liberation scenarios.
It makes you wonder how they held on to hope.
It does.
He also talks about the refuge he found in love. Those vivid mental conversations he had with his wife.
Right.
Love can transcend physical separation.
Yeah, it's a testament to the power of the human mind.
It is.
To create its own escapes even within a concentration camp.
But then comes phase 3 liberation,
Right.
which brings its own set of challenges.
He talks about how difficult it was to readjust to the outside world.
Yeah.
That loss of the ability to feel pleasure, the constant urge to talk about his experience.
And a crushing disappointment
Oh, yeah.
of a world that didn't live up to the expectations.
It seems like freedom isn't always easy to handle.
It makes you think about all the veterans who struggle to reintegrate after war.
Yeah.
The trauma doesn't just vanish.
Not to mention the existential crisis of finding meaning
Right.
after enduring such unimaginable suffering.
How do you even begin to rebuild your life?
Right.
This raises a really important question for us.
Okay.
How can we apply these phases of reaction to other types of trauma or even everyday challenges?
Right.
Can recognizing these phases,
Yeah.
the shock, the apathy, the difficulties of readjustment,
Right.
help us cope with our own struggles?
It makes you wonder if there are universal elements to the human experience of suffering and recovery.
Absolutely.
And that by understanding how people coped in such extreme situations,
Yes.
we can glean insights for navigating our own, thankfully, less dire circumstances.
Right. And to your point about finding purpose, Frankl also talks about the psychology of the camp guards.
Okay.
He doesn't excuse their actions.
Right.
But he does try to understand the factors that contributed to their brutality.
He mentions things like the selection process for guards, which seems to have favored the most brutal prisoners.
Reinforcing a culture of cruelty.
Yeah, and then, of course, the corrupting influence of absolute power.
It's a chilling reminder of how easily ordinary people can become instruments of cruelty, especially when they have unchecked power.
But despite all of this, what really struck me is Frankl's message of resilience.
Oh, yeah.
He emphasizes that even in a concentration camp, prisoners still had a degree of freedom.
Okay.
The freedom to choose how they responded to their suffering.
This concept of inner freedom, even when you're facing unimaginable constraints, is at the heart of his philosophy. And it's what leads us to his theory of logotherapy.
He gives some truly powerful examples.
Like what?
Frankl choosing to stay with his parents.
Wow.
Rather than try to escape alone.
Yeah.
The young woman finding solace in a chestnut tree.
Right.
And even his own decision to stay with his patients.
Oh, wow.
Instead of seizing an opportunity to escape.
So even in the darkest of places, individuals could still hold on to their humanity.
It's almost paradoxical. Finding freedom within a prison?
Exactly.
So are you saying that even in a concentration camp?
Yes.
There was still room for personal choice?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Frankl is adamant that even in the most extreme situations, we are not simply puppets of our circumstances. We always have a choice. However small, about our attitude or response, that's where true freedom lies. And that's the foundation for his theory of logotherapy.
That idea that freedom lies in our choices is a powerful takeaway.
It is.
And it seems like a perfect segue into exploring Frankl's ideas about logotherapy.
Let's do it.
But before we get into that, let's take a moment to let everything we've discussed so far sink in.
Yeah.
It's pretty heavy stuff.
For sure.
Okay, so,
So Frankl's experiences in the camps really shaped his theory of logotherapy. It's all about the will to meaning, which he sees as this primary driving force for us humans.
So it's not just about seeking pleasure or avoiding pain.
No, not really.
As some other psychological theories might suggest.
Exactly.
It's about finding meaning in our lives.
No, exactly. He argues that this drive to find meaning is even more fundamental than our basic survival instincts.
Wow.
It's what gives our lives purpose and direction.
But what happens when our search for meaning is blocked? When we can't seem to find that purpose?
Frankl called that existential frustration. And he believed it could lead to all sorts of things.
Like what?
Like feelings of emptiness, meaninglessness, even neurosis.
So is he suggesting that every person struggling with those feelings is experiencing some kind of existential crisis?
Not necessarily. He makes an important distinction.
What's that?
That not every instance of suffering or inner conflict is a mental illness. Some of these struggles are just natural parts of being human, part of the process of growing and evolving.
So logotherapy is there to help us navigate those existential roadblocks.
Yes.
And find meaning even amidst the struggles.
Precisely. And this is where Frankl introduces one of his key concepts. The existential vacuum.
This sounds intriguing.
It is.
What exactly is an existential vacuum?
He describes it as this widespread feeling of emptiness and lack of purpose, something that he felt was particularly prevalent in the 20th century.
Makes sense.
Think about the rise of nihilism, the disillusionment after 2 world wars, the rapid societal changes that were upending traditional values.
He specifically mentions the no future generation.
Yes.
And even something called unemployment neurosis.
Yes, these are all symptoms of that underlying sense of meaninglessness. That feeling of being adrift in a world that no longer provides clear direction.
Almost like the old maps no longer apply. And we're left trying to navigate uncharted territory. Exactly.
You've got a compass.
And what's fascinating is that Frankl doesn't offer a simple universal answer to the question of life's meaning.
So there's no one-size-fits-all solution. No magic formula for finding purpose.
Not in his view. He believed that meaning is unique, to each individual in each moment.
So it's not something you find once and hold on to forever?
No, it's an ongoing process of discovery and creation.
That's actually quite liberating.
It is.
It puts the responsibility and the freedom back in our own hands.
But he does give us some guidance.
Okay, good.
He outlines 3 avenues for finding meaning.
Let's hear it.
The first is through creative work or a deed.
Okay.
It's about contributing something to the world, making a difference through our actions.
So finding meaning through what we create, what we contribute.
Exactly. The second avenue is through experiencing something or encountering someone.
Like what?
It could be appreciating the beauty of nature.
Discovering a profound truth.
Right.
Or connecting with another human being on a deep level.
So it's about opening ourselves up to the richness and complexity of life.
Yes.
Both in the world around us and in our relationships with others.
It's about allowing ourselves to be moved, to be inspired, to be changed.
Right.
By our experiences.
And the third avenue
yes,
is perhaps the most challenging.
It might be.
The attitude we take towards unavoidable suffering.
He gives the example of the elderly doctor who found missing in sparing his wife from suffering.
Right.
By choosing to die first.
It's a heart-wrenching story.
It is.
And it highlights how meaning doesn't necessarily come from avoiding suffering.
Right.
Sometimes it arises from the way we choose to face it.
So suffering isn't inherently meaningful.
Right.
But we can choose to find meaning in it.
Yes. It's about our response, our attitude.
Frankl believed that even in the face of great pain and loss, we still have the power to choose how we react.
Okay.
How we interpret our experiences.
This reframes the whole idea of suffering, doesn't it?
It does.
It suggests that even in the darkest moments, there's a potential for growth and meaning-making.
Exactly. And he makes a crucial distinction.
Look at that.
Suffering isn't necessary for meaning.
Right.
But meaning is possible even in the face of suffering.
That's a really important point.
It is.
It's not about glorifying suffering or seeking it out, but recognizing that it's an inevitable part of life.
And that we have the power to shape how we respond to it.
Right. And this leads us to Frankl's concept of the super meaning.
Ooh, that's a good one.
This sounds almost mystical.
It is kind of.
What did he mean by the super meaning?
It refers to the ultimate meaning of life.
Wow.
Something that may ultimately transcend our human understanding.
So there are mysteries we may never fully grasp.
Right.
Questions that logic and reason alone can't answer.
He acknowledges that there are limits to our knowledge, accepting that there may be a greater purpose at play.
Right.
Even if we can't fully comprehend it.
So it's about having faith that there's a larger meaning.
Yes.
Even if we can't always see it.
It's a humbling perspective.
It is. But how do we actually apply these concepts?
Right.
How does logotherapy work as a therapeutic technique?
Well, Frankl developed some really interesting techniques for helping people tap into their will to meaning.
Right.
One of them is called paradoxical intention.
Paradoxical intention?
Yeah.
That sounds kind of counterintuitive.
I know, right?
What is it?
It involves intentionally trying to do the thing you're afraid of to break the cycle of anticipatory anxiety.
So if you're terrified of public speaking, you would intentionally try to mess up your speech.
In a way, yes.
Wow.
By embracing the worst case scenario. Trying to make it happen. You expose the absurdity of the fear and loosen its grip. Frankl gives a great example of a doctor with a sweating phobia.
Who was cured by challenging himself to sweat as much as possible.
Oh my God.
In front of an audience.
That's wild, and it worked.
It did. The doctor was finally able to laugh at his fear.
Wow.
And break free from it.
That's amazing. Another technique is called dereflection.
Dereflection, yeah.
What's that about?
It's about shifting your attention away from yourself. And towards a meaningful purpose. It's about getting out of your own head. And focusing on something bigger than yourself.
So instead of obsessing over your own anxieties and insecurities, you redirect your energy towards something that gives you a sense of purpose.
Exactly. Frankl talks about a woman struggling with frigidity who was able to overcome it by shifting her focus from her own performance to the pleasure of her partner. By taking the attention off of herself, she was able to relax and experience intimacy.
Both of these techniques seem to involve disrupting our usual patterns of thought and behavior.
Like shaking things up. Changing our perspective to gain a new understanding.
And what about Frankl's ideas about the collective neurosis?
Oh, yeah.
How does that fit into all of this?
He saw the collective neurosis as a manifestation of the existential vacuum.
Okay.
On a societal level. It's that sense of meaninglessness playing out.
Right.
On a grand scale.
So it's like the feeling of being lost and directionless.
Yeah.
Becoming a shared experience.
Exactly.
A cultural phenomenon.
Precisely. And he warned against what he called pandeterminism.
Pandeterminism.
Yeah.
What's that?
It's the belief that we are merely products of our circumstances.
Okay.
That we have no real freedom or agency.
So we relinquish our responsibility, our power to choose our own paths.
It's like giving up on the possibility of creating our own meaning.
Exactly. Frankl believed that even in the most difficult situations, we still have a choice.
Even in the face of tremendous suffering, he saw this as the key to overcoming this collective neurosis. It's a powerful reminder.
It is.
That we're not just passive victims of circumstance.
We have the capacity to choose our responses.
Right.
To shape our own experiences, even within the limitations.
But how does all of this apply to us today?
That's a great question.
In our own lives.
I think one of the most valuable aspects of Frankl's work is its enduring relevance.
Okay.
He's not just talking about surviving concentration camps.
Right.
He's offering a framework for navigating the challenges of being human in any era.
So it's about more than just surviving trauma.
Yes.
It's about finding meaning in everyday life.
Exactly. Frankl's message is timeless.
Okay.
He's reminding us that meaning isn't something that's just handed to us.
Right.
It's something we actively create through our choices and actions.
Even when those choices are limited.
Yeah.
By external factors, by circumstances we can't control.
Even then, he's calling us to take responsibility for our own lives.
Right.
To actively seek out meaning. In our work, in our relationships, and yes, even in our suffering.
That's a powerful message.
It is.
That we have the power to shape our own lives.
We do.
Even when the world around us feels chaotic and uncertain. So it all comes back to that idea of choice.
Right.
That even when faced with unimaginable suffering, we still have the power to decide how we respond.
And that's where Frankl's observation of both swine and saints in concentration camps becomes so powerful.
He's not saying that some people were inherently good while others were evil, right?
Not at all.
Okay.
He's saying that even in that horrific environment, some people clung to their humanity, to their values, while others succumbed to their baser instincts. And he believed the difference wasn't about their inherent nature, but about the choices they made.
So even in a place designed to strip people of their dignity, their hope,
right,
there was still room for moral choice.
It's a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit.
It really is, and I think it speaks to the core message of Frankl's work.
What's that?
That we are ultimately responsible for who we become.
Yeah.
Even in the face of unimaginable adversity.
So what does all this mean for you listening right now?
Frankl's book, his theory of logotherapy. It's all very thought-provoking.
For sure.
But how do we take these ideas and actually apply them to our own lives?
I think Frankl's message is this.
Okay.
Even in the darkest of times, we possess an inner freedom to find meaning.
Right.
It's not about avoiding suffering, but about choosing how we respond to it.
Right.
It's about recognizing that even when we can't control our circumstances, we can always control our attitude.
It's a profound shift in perspective.
Absolutely.
Instead of asking, why me?
Right.
We can ask, what now?
Exactly. It's about taking ownership of our lives. Focusing on what we can control. And finding meaning in the face of life's challenges.
As you move forward from this deep dive, take some time to reflect on what really matters to you.
What are the values that guide your choices?
Yeah, where do you find meaning in your life?
And how can you use this awareness to shape your future?
Right.
Regardless of the obstacles you may encounter.
Man's Search for Meaning isn't just a book.
No, it's not.
It's a call to action.
A call to action.
And an invitation to examine your own life.
Yes.
And discover the power of your choices.
It's about finding that inner freedom that Frankl talked about, that spark of resilience that allows us to create meaning even in the face of suffering.
We encourage you to take these ideas and make them your own.
Explore what resonates with you. Your meaning awaits.